Dragon's Den. I'm SinDragonLord, and this is week number 3 of the Global Pokemon Society Invitational. And we are taking on close friend of the channel, MrVladtheMan, aka the Chicago Slowkings. So real quick before we get into his team, we did make a couple of trades for free agent swaps, I guess I should say. We swapped the Decidueye for a Noivern, and we swapped our Rotom Frost for a Piloswine. There is a reason for that I will likely get into in another video, but there are reasons why those swaps were made. So, anywho, let's just exit out of that. Let's get into... There we go. The Slowkings. So they also made a trade, or free agent swap. They swapped Chestnut for Conkeldurr. So, yeah. So we're looking at Magearna, Azumarill, Hydreigon, Thundurus Incarnate, Tauros Blaze Breed, the Conkeldurr that we just mentioned, Sableye, Braviary, Dunsparce, regular Dunsparce, I'll have to change that up, and Lilligant. So this team is actually really solid, and the Magearna is actually the kill leader currently for these 3 weeks. It has been going absolutely insane, and there has been some talk in the rules committee about putting a special rule with sword power being not allowed on the same moveset as a speed boosting move or a speed boosting ability. I don't know if that's going to go through. I personally don't think it should. But that's just me. But yeah, I mean, we got 2 Prankster users, which Prankster is like one of my favorite abilities, so love that for him. Hydreigon, fantastic, love that. But I mean, I can't really see anything really wrong with this team. The Magearna and the Azu are kind of like the biggest problems that I can see being a problem. The Magearna especially. Just because Shift Gear, Calm Mind with like Sword Power and Draining Kiss is absolutely ludicrously strong. I mean, it's in Ubers for a reason. So, what are we bringing against this team? Well, you can see on the right-hand side, that's what we're anticipating him to bring. And on the left-hand side, that's what we plan to bring as well to combat that. But, what are the sets? Now, these are subject to change. I'm still kind of testing a couple of different things. But for right now, we're looking at Umbreon with a Wish, Yawn, Protect, and Roar set. Why is that? Well, because I feel like phasing in this particular matchup is going to be important to keep the Magearna in check. As well as Yawn pressure. Because there's a lot of things on this team that could potentially want to set up. And just having the Yawn pressure make him decide, okay, do I want this to go to sleep or do I want to swap this out? Thus, removing any boosts he may have acquired. I think will be pretty important. We have a Citrus Berry on it, just because I already gave leftovers to something else, so it just made sense. And then just having a Wish Passer in general just seems like it would be good. Now, the obvious weakness here for Umbreon is it does kind of die to Taunt, but most of his Pokemon that would want to Taunt are Pranksters, which Umbreon is immune to, so we're just kind of banking on hoping that he doesn't have Taunt on anything that's not Prankster. Next, we got Gastrodon. So with Gastrodon, we got this is here to kind of keep the Azumarill in check. Mostly, like, based on his team composition, I don't think he's bringing Belly Drum Azumarill. Just because normally with Azumarill you want Like if you're gonna do that in singles, like with belly drum, you're gonna want like speed control. You're gonna want maybe screens to ensure that the belly drum goes off safely. Um, but he doesn't really have that. I mean, outside of Thunderwave on Thunders, he doesn't really have much in the way of like speed control. Um, so yeah, we made Gastrodon physically defensive, and obviously Umbreon especially defensive. The Gastrodon's here to help deal with the Azumarill and kind of keep that in check with Storm Drain. Um, and the Umbreon's there to kind of keep the Magearna in check. We got Earth Power, Ice Beam, Recover, and again, Yawn. I feel like Yawn pressure is going to be pretty good in this particular matchup, especially when you pair it up with a Stealth Rocker. Just having that pressure of that residual damage from the rocks, and he does have one potential defogger, that being Braviary. So I could see him bringing that over Conkeldurr or Thundurus. So if he does do that, I will obviously make those adjustments. Um, but yeah, so I feel like with Stealth Rocks and just having that yawn pressure of forcing swaps is going to be really annoying, and it's really going to discourage attempting to set up and just go for the attacks, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do, is just put that pressure on him and make it really uncomfortable for him to set up. And then we got Earthquake, Ice Spinner, and Rapid Spin. He doesn't have much in the way of hazards himself. He got rid of Chestnut, which could have set up spikes, but outside of that, I mean, I think I think Dunsparce gets Stealth Rock, doesn't it? Let me see. Let's see. It does get Stealth Rock, so it could potentially be Dunsparce that sets up rocks, so that could also be an option. Then I know he loves Dunsparce with like Glare and Ring Grace Headbutts, just a Paraflinch strat. So that could be another form of speed control if he did decide he wants to go with the Belly Drum. Then we got Old Faithful. We got Medicham. We are going with a Bandit set this time around for a couple of reasons. The first reason is when it comes to dealing with Azumarill and Magearna, I want as much power as possible. And with Sticky Web support, which we are bringing, I feel like we don't need the Scarf as much. Now, there's obviously exceptions to that, like Hydreigon will outspeed, the Thundurus will outspeed, and there will be immune to Sticky Web. However, they don't really have super effective coverage on Medicham. So Medicham would have to be chipped in order for it to really threaten a KO, I would think. But we'll see how that goes. We are going with Close Combat, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Zen Headbutt. I was contemplating going Trick to see if I could maybe trick a choice item onto Magearna. That way, it would be another form of disruption as far as not allowing him to set up with it. And basically forcing him to lock in the Draining Kiss, because stored power will be absolutely pitiful. But I feel like that only works game one, or the first time I try it, and then he just plays around it. So I opted to just go for more coverage moves, and I felt like I had enough deterrence from setting up that I didn't really need it. Then we got Rabombi, and we were putting a Mental Herb on it this week, just because the Prankster Taunt from Thundurus would mess us up being able to set up Sticky Web. So we decided to just put a Mental Herb on it. That way, even if it does get taunted, we could still set up a Sticky Web. We also have Stun Spore as another form of speed control if we need it. It's a little unreliable, but it's better than nothing. And then we got Dual Stab and Bug Buzz and Moonblast. And then finally we got Iron Moth. Pretty standard set. Agility, Substitute, and then Dual Stab. I didn't feel like I needed a coverage move just because Fire and Poison kind of cover this team nicely. So I didn't feel like I needed much else. So, yeah. with that being said, I don't want to take up too much time, so let's just get in the battle portion of this video right about now. Welcome to the battle portion of this video. My name is SinDragonLord, and I'm here with a post-battle commentary with our opponent, the Chicago Slowkings, aka MrVladtheMan. Go ahead, MrVladtheMan. How you doing today?
Hey, how's it going?
So we got quite the match here for you today.
Certainly a battle. I just wish I was better prepared, but if my tester had actually known how to play Pokemon, that'd be great.
Shots fired. Anyway,
certainly not directly towards any one particular person in general. The Lavishon Gengars or anything.
No, couldn't be that. Nope.
Couldn't be him. Nope, not in the least. Couldn't be that.
So
bug buzz on the Iron Moth. Totally the moveset to go with.
Are you able to see the screen? Okay.
Yeah, I can see the screen. Okay.
Okay. So I noticed the first thing that I noticed when we started this match was you didn't bring your MVP Magearna.
Yep.
That could be one of two reasons. Either one, you knew that I was skilled enough to be able to deal with the Magearna, or you thought I was so shitty that you didn't need the Magearna in this particular matchup. Which one was it?
The first one, because Magearna's a fun toy to set up with some dumb people. I'm just kidding. It's I figured that you'd have at least 5 or 6 sets to Magearna, and I did not want to have to deal with any of that.
Well, you're correct about that. I did have a few answers for Magearna. One of them was actually the Umbreon. So there was a couple of move slots that were kind of dead on some of these Pokemon that were dead strictly because of Magearna not existing in this matchup. But do explain your choices for what you brought and why you brought them. Kind of like explain.
So the Thunderous was actually my check to your Gastrodon and the Gore Great Tusk, because of the fact that it does still get Grass Knot, which in testing I found out actually does one shot and has like a 96 or 97% chance to one shot the Gastrodon as well. So that was fun. Otherwise, it was just going to be like
right here.
Yep, this is the moment where Kevin found out he fucked up. Beyond that, the Thunderous was just a prankster user with Thunder Wave, kind of just to slow down the Medicham, which I anticipated being scarfed. And then other than that, it was death fodder after those 3 specific uses. Braviary, Defog, no. Fun fact that Kevin didn't know about this: Conkeldurr apparently also does get Defog, which I found out last night.
Yeah, so
didn't put it on it, but
Well, I mean, yeah, because you're not bad. But I mean, fun fact though, if you ever did need a clutch defogger that you didn't want to put on Braviary, you have that option.
Yeah. Which is probably some of the weirdest things I've ever said in my life. But yeah, that was a fun thing to find out.
So I'll full disclosure. So there is one other reason why I banded the Medicham instead of scarfing it. The first reason was because I knew that Sticky Web would kind of help out with my job, and even though Scarf Tauros would actually still outspeed me, assuming it was Jolly, assuming it was. Oh no, even if it was Adamant, I think it was still outspeed. But the reason I was banned is because I thought there was a very small chance that you might bring Dunsparce, and close combat does one-shot Eviolite Dunsparce, even if you are max defense. So you would need max defense and a coil up in order to not just die to close combat.
And that's what I found out when Dunsparce died. And like, it should have this, and it doesn't. Okay, cool, it's banded. That's great. I overprepared.
Now here comes an interesting point in game 1. So this Iron Moth, it's actually been kind of low key. Well, I won't say low key. It's my kill leader right now. It's gotten the most kills out of my entire team, but it's not in the top 10 because apparently dying one more time than a Pokemon that has 6 kills, whereas this is 7 kills, 2 deaths is enough to keep me off of the top 10, which I think is stupid, but...
yeah, you just gotta do what Magirna did. Don't die more than once and then get 10 kills in one game.
Oh, there you go, see? So the reason I opted to go substitute, because I did have, I had Whirlwind on this initially instead of substitute, but I brought in Umbreon that had Roar to kind of check the Iron Moth, but I also wanted to potentially have a sub up just in case you brought in Azu, that way I could survive at least one Aqua, or the substitute would take a potential Aqua Jet, and I was able to fire off a Sludge Wave, which would basically, you know, get the KO.
Yeah, here's where I have U-turn on the Braviary, and I should have U-turned instead of hard switching, which is I don't entirely know why I did that, but it kind of sucked. I mean, the Source would have probably been able to take the hit better. Because I think I would have been able in a much better situation otherwise.
Well, I mean, the Braviary would have gone down for sure, but I don't know if you would have taken a Sludge Wave on the Tauros. I'd have to calc that, but because if you had just gone like a hard swap into, that should have gave it away right there that you scarfed. It didn't like occur to me at that moment, but that should have been a dead giveaway that you were. But I mean, assuming you didn't hard swap and you either went for U-turn, in which case Braviary would die and Tauros would just come in for free, I don't know that you would have survived a Sludge Wave, considering that Fiery Dance is a resistant hit and did that much damage, and Sludge Wave is a stronger move. So I don't know that you would have survived regardless.
Right.
So I don't know if I would call that a misplay on my part, unless you value the Tauros being alive more than the Braviary, which is...
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. The Tauros had a lot more utility, because So the Tauros being scarfed checked the Medicham in case it was scarfed, checked the Rabombi completely, because that was a fun play test to kind of like switch into on surprise. And then even though it doesn't deal too much damage, it still would have like forced the Gastrodon to just recover, like the entire time.
And something to just point out was right here when the Iron Moth went for the Sludge Wave instead of hard switching to Gastro. That's because the Aqua Jet is so obvious, and thus the Gastrodon switch was so obvious that I figured that I was pretty okay to just go for it. And even if you were banned and locked yourself into Aqua Jet, Gastro could just come in and fire off a free yawn into whatever swapped in, and in a really awkward position. I did want to test if Headbutt would be enough to break the sub, but you ended up not going for it anyway, just going for Coil. So the sub was pretty free, but... Now, I assume that this was max special defense investment, considering it survived it that well.
I had to check, hang on. Pull up my team builder. Yeah, max special defense investment.
Yeah, because I'm booster energied and I had one Fiery Dance prog, so the fact that it only did 50% was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
I was tempted to go for agility here, but I figured a headbutt would take me out, so it wasn't a good time to set up agility. Even though I really wanted to, because I knew Thunderous would outspeed me and probably KO me. I really wanted a safe opportunity to set up agility, but he just never gave me one. So...
Never. Not once.
Not once. And like... I know I was tempted to go for it here, but I was scared of you potentially... I think Conkeldurr gets Earthquake, doesn't it?
No. No, it does not.
Oh. I was covering for any sort of...
It gets high horsepower.
I was covering for some sort of ground move, because I knew that with the booster energy being gone, that knockoff wouldn't do that much, and I resist fighting stabs, so I was covering for, like, rock or ground coverage. Like Rock Slide or...
Yeah, no, it gets bulldoze and high horsepower.
Which, fun fact, high horsepower does not have his damage reduced in grassy terrain. I don't know what ground moves do, or if it's just Earthquake, I'm not 100% sure, but I thought it was all
like
ground
90%.
moves, but...
like 90% sure that grassy terrain just doesn't have that effect anymore.
Just doesn't have that effect anymore in general.
In general, no, I don't think so.
I'd have to look into that, but I can't do it right this second.
I can.
So, knowing that the Thunderous has Grass Knot, I knew that Gastrodon was not a safe switch here. So I figured my best bet was an Umbreon switch. Because I knew you outsped me, and I'm pretty sure that a Volt switch with Life Orb would have been able to take me out from that range, and I figured the Iron Moth would be useful later.
Okay, so as far as grassy terrain is concerned, specifically Earthquake, Bulldoze, and Magnitude have their damages reduced.
So just those moves in particular. So
Specifically.
specifically.
And apparently Grass Pelt is an item that gives a defense boost of 50% on grassy terrain, so that's fun.
Yeah, the only Pokemon that I know that gets it is Go-Go.
That's funny.
So, yeah. I think Grassy Pelt is legal on Go-Go. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it is. So, I forget who has the Rillaboom. Is it Oklahoma? I'm pretty sure you face a Rillaboom this year, right?
Yeah, it is Oklahoma.
So, I mean, if you wanted to have a Grassy Pelt or like a just physical wall, I mean, that's a good route to go if you're going to be wanting to abuse that terrain more. But now, I was going for a Wish Pass and hoping I could survive a Volt Switch. I don't know if the crit mattered, but if it did, damn, because that Wish Pass would have been so clutch. But
I believe that crit mattered because I think under normal circumstances I only deal like 30% damage.
Well, the only benefit to this here, well, yeah, I won't say there's a benefit because had the Mothra gotten the Wish off, I would have been in a good position to just start, firing off really strong attacks. But I knew that I was in a good position to just yawn, because if you switched into the Thunderous, it would probably go to sleep and I could swap into something to take the Grass Knot, or it would just force the switch again, in which case, in either scenario, Ice Beam does a good amount. So, I really like the yawn pressure here. You did really well at keeping rocks off, that way that wouldn't be like an added effect of that particular pressure, but
a lot of my calculations were in consideration of rocks, and it was a little trickier because numbers were a lot closer than I'd like them to be, but it's still, I mean, for the most part, I was able to ignore rocks pretty okay.
So the Terra Ghost on Braviary, I saw that you had Terra Ghost on the Tauros too. Was that also supposed to be a Medicham check?
Yep.
Just take the close combat, Terra Ghost, and then just...
Well, because an Ice Punch on a regular Medicham, not banded, Braviary does survive it. Max HP. With Terra Ghost specifically, otherwise it doesn't survive it. So it literally just came down to survivability on the Braviary side of things.
Gotcha. Well...
Oh, and also the Dunsparce is also Terra Ghost, because why not?
I figured it would. I figured it would be. That's why, like, I was a little afraid. I am, like, even if I led Medicham into a Dunsparce late, I was like a little hesitant to go close combat just because you could just Terra Ghost and then glare, and then that's just awful. That's an awful turn one for me.
Just stared at you menacingly.
So here, I believe I yawned you, and you swapped into the Thunderous, and I went for Ice Beam, so I figured with all the Life Orb damage that you had taken, that it would be enough, and it turns out I was correct. So now it's just the Terra Ghost Braviary, and at this point, it's Curtains, because I can just go for Yawn, or, just recover off whatever damage you're going to do, then go for Yawn, and then, it's not a good situation for the Braviary in general.
Yeah, Braviary had a pretty rough time.
What was the full moveset? It was Defog, Brave Bird, U-turn, and what was the fourth move?
Roost.
Roost. Yeah, so you didn't really have much to hit the Umbreon with. I think Braviary gets close in combat, which I think. I don't quote me on it. I think it gets some sort of fighting coverage.
Mm, it does get some fighting coverage, but it just wasn't. It gets close combat, and superpower. Neither of which were really favorable
Yeah.
this matchup. So I didn't bother with it.
Yeah. So I went for Earth Power, and I realized too late that Braviary gets Defiant, that Earth Power has a chance to lower your special defense. So as soon as I clicked, I was like, shit, don't prog. Like, even though I knew you were going to sleep, it's still not something I really want to prog.
Fair. So this particular Braviary is actually Sheer Force.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but that does get confirmed later. Which is interesting, considering I don't think you had any moves on it that would prog, or that would get a Sheer Force boost, right? Because
Yeah, none of them would not. None of them do. So it was just it was a misnomer at this point. I was just like, I like Defiant, but relying on a stat drop more than relying on a status effect, kind of empty-handed. That's too much reliance at that point.
Well, I mean, and I tell the people this all the time, is especially if you're playing singles, there is a surefire way to prog Defiant. Like, if you're going against a team that only form of hazard removal is defog, and you know they're probably going to go for the defog, you can switch in your Defiant user. That guarantees lowers your evasiveness, and then you get the Defiant prog, which is kind of what I was. I didn't have any like defog users on my team, but
Right.
I was afraid of like potentially progging a Defiant and then just having it snowball. But you were in range, you were asleep, and you were also in range for Earth Power to just take you out after you fell asleep. So after that first initial scare, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So game one, Iron Moth did a shit ton of work. I was actually really happy. I wasn't like planning on being overly reliant on the Iron Moth, but it put in some good work. This game, I was kind of anticipating you to lead the Dunsparce again, but you led the Tauros, and I was like, all right, well, I'm banded. My close combat's going to do, or my Zen Headbutt rather, is going to do neutral damage. If you're physically, like, if you were the physical defensive variant, Zen Headbutt would not do it after the Intimidate, which is why I ended up switching. No, I did not predict your Scarf. That was not something I predicted. And also because I'm banded, I knew you would outspeed me anyway. So.
Yeah. And then Terra goes Taurus.
Yeah, Zen Headbutt definitely would not have been done nearly enough then. In general.
You know, in complete honestly, I almost went Terra Dark Tauros with fucking what's it called? Terra Blast instead of Earthquake.
I was wondering when you went Terra Ghost if you had the Terra Blast on it, because that would have also been good. Like even if so if you have Terra Ghost and you have Terra Blast, that's super effective on Metacham if I don't Terra. And then if I did Terra, which I was Terra Steel, then close combat would do it. So like even if I prepped for, or even if it came to a situation where I found out, oh, you're scarfed because you went Terra Ghost and knocked me out before I could do anything. Like Terraing isn't even safe because you could predict that and just go for close combat, and then I'm still taking a crap ton of damage.
Right.
That Metacham's not the bulkiest thing in the world either, so.
Yeah, Conkelder was definitely the MVP for this battle for me. It did a lot more work than I anticipated it doing just in general.
Well, and I was figuring, I wasn't sure, like, I do hard switching to Conkelder here. And I was kind of concerned about the Flame Orb, obviously, because I figured, oh, he might go Flame Orb, and then he's just got strong-ass facades and mock punches, and it's going to be a real problem. But then the Flame Orb didn't prog, so like, okay, he's probably vested then, and I wanted to test that theory with Rabambi, because I knew that since you weren't Flame Orb, and you weren't on Facade, and you didn't use Rock Slide or any ground moves in general, so you didn't have that kind of coverage, so I knew that Rabambi was pretty safe, given the moves I had seen thus far. The Braviary, this is the part where I shit bricks. I was like, oh god, did I just prog Defiant? Because I knew another Moonblast probably wouldn't do it, and Bravery would just, even without the boost, Bravery would have easily taken me out, but I was definitely afraid of Defiant progging there, because that would have been awful for me. Especially if you predicted that switch and just went for Roost.
So. Right. God, I already forgot like half the battle, just because it's just like already pushed out of my mind.
So, I went for the Sticky Web here because I knew you were either going to go for the Brave Bird or you were going to go for the U-turn, but you weren't just going to go for Defog blindly. So I figured using Sticky Web here would be fine. Because even if you did go for the Brave Bird and knock out the Rabambi, I could just bring in Iron Moth and threaten the KO and prevent Defog from ever happening. Right. I figured Sticky Web was just the best move there. I was willing to sack the Rabambi for that, but...
I think here I got distracted by Odin.
Interesting fact, you have 2 potential Defiant users. Not that I would ever suggest using Prankster over Defiant on Thunderous, but... for singles at least, but... Now here I knew I was faster. And I figured getting some chip on the Thunderous might be helpful, especially if I'm able to get rocks up later. So I figured I was already planning on sacking the Rabambi, that it wouldn't matter regardless, but you just ended up going for T-Wave. So
that was fun.
And Moonblast did a bit more than I was expecting it to do. I forget sometimes that Rabambi has a respectable special attack stat.
Yeah, it's actually decent. It's the weirdest thing.
Like, it's base 95. So it's like base 124 speed, 95 special attack. Like, it's a respectable, you know, offensive threat.
It just doesn't have much of a special defense.
Oh god, no. It's paper thin defenses. Absolutely. The only reason why that works out in my favor is because you are forced to switch in first, and I'm able to switch in something else accordingly, which is the only issue that I have, specifically with knocking out Pokemon with pivot moves, is that you have to switch in first, and that gives them an opportunity to make the most appropriate switch in after that.
Yeah, I figured here that Conkeldurr was probably my best bet, to be completely honest. There wasn't any other Pokemon that, like, because nothing wants to try and switch in on a Drain Punch, even if it isn't Guts boosted. Or a knockoff, especially because like the Rabambi's item I'd already knocked off, and like what's the worst thing that could happen? You bring in the Iron Moth and I can't knock off its item anymore? Oh no.
Yeah, tragic.
It's still not gonna like Drain Punches because they do so much damage, as you'll see later.
Well, I mean, Iron Moth's defenses are just god awful. I think it's like the entire like the top part of its stat boost or stat distribution is like 60, and then the bottom part is 110 across the board. So it's definitely not taking physical hits well.
Yeah.
Now,
Hero was really interested. Like, why'd you go for the Ice Spinner here?
I was predicting the Braviary switch in to take the Earthquake and try to get a defog off. But
yeah.
But when I saw that you weren't just doing that, that's when I started saying, okay, Earthquake is fine. And then even if you did bring in Braviary on the switch, I don't know how... I think you were at, like, just above half. But I wasn't sure if the Braviary would take one Ice Spinner, because I know I'm faster than it, I think. Base 87 speed versus base, I think, 80, I think, for Braviary. But realistically, I probably should have just went for the Earthquake off the bat, because, you know, then I didn't have to lose Great Tusk so early.
Yeah.
So at this point,
Mach Punch, I didn't know, I was really uncertain if Mach Punch was going to KO from this range, just because of how little Drain Punch ended up doing. I thought it was going to do more.
I assumed that you were Iron Fist instead of Guts since you were vested.
That's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a very fair. But like part of the conversation I was having with Alex the other night was just like, I could go Iron Fist, but if I get burned, I'm kind of SOL. Just period. There's no ifs ands and buts about around it. So I go Guts. I rely on the fact that I really should have brought Sleep Talk on the Conch Elder because I think I would have been a little bit better off than knockoff. Especially with the amount of yawn support that you had, because then I could have just gone like, okay, Mach Punch, Drain Punch, Facade, Sleep Talk, with Guts boost on all of those to stop the yawning shenanigans.
Well, and the fun part about that is since Rest isn't banned in this tournament, you could go like a Rest Talk Conch Elder with like, if you really wanted to. The only problem with that is that you would lose potentially your coverage option. So if you come against a ghost type or just something that resists fighting, you're in a bit of trouble. But I would say, yeah, if you're worried about, like lead sleep powder or whatever, you could go Sleep Talk in a coverage mood and just hope for the best if you really wanted to go that route. So yeah, here I wasn't expecting Drain Punch to do that much, especially since you weren't Guts boosted at that point in time. But I wasn't sure if a Mach Punch would be able to take me out, so I just figured go for the attack, don't go for the agility, don't get greedy, because even if you just went for Drain Punch there, a Mach Punch would definitely do it if Drain Punch didn't. But yeah, no, losing Iron Moth so early in the game and being down 6-3, where all of my offensive options were just basically gone at that point, I was really, kind of nervous. All I got is Umbreon that has no offensive moves whatsoever. I have a Gastrodon that does have Earth Power and Ice Beam, but it's not going to be doing much damage. I was like, alright, I'm going to have to heavy rely on Medicham here, and you have so many good checks to Medicham that it was scary for me. It was alright, you got the Terra Ghost on Tauros, I can't just fire off a close combat, knowing that switch is very probable. But you brought in Thundurus instead, which was interesting to me.
I just brought it in for the sack.
Fair.
Thunder's already far exceeded its use regardless, so it's not. It was an easy choice for me.
Gotcha. But no, I was definitely expecting the Tauros switch in, because with Intimidate, it's gonna take a Thunder Punch pretty well, and if you went for anything else. I figured with Braviary, with Thundurus, with Azu, all those potential switches, it just felt like Thunder Punch was the best option. But so yeah, now I'm in this situation where I really have to deal with this Tauros, because once I deal with the Tauros, then I'm kind of free to just go ham with Medicham outside of the Azu, but I also have Gastrodon here that can. That's why I made Gastrodon physically defensive, is because I wanted it to be able to handle the Azu. That way, even if I switched in on a play rough, I could hopefully, take another one and just start recover spamming until I'm healthy enough. So the Gastrodon also ended up being my check to Tauros, which, thank goodness that you were Scarfed and you didn't have Trailblaze. When you Terra'd the first time, I was worried that you would be Terra Grass and have Trailblaze, and then Gastro was just not a good switch in.
Alright, I was initially thinking Trailblaze, but I thought that might have been just too much check for the Gastrodon and the Great Tusk. Because when it came down to it, if it gets paralyzed and you, for whatever reason, decide to leave it in on the Dunsparce or on anything else that can just chip at it. Especially against the Conch Elder, the Conch Elder at this point provided greater chip than you'd be able to shake off.
Yeah.
Especially at this point, because now it's guts boosted on top of everything else.
Yeah. So there, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of expecting you to swap again. I wasn't, but I guess you were. I guess you were just content with the Dunsparce going to sleep, which I was also content with, because glaring the Gastrodon isn't the worst thing in the world, because I'm already so slow. The only problem would be is if I'm threatened to get 2-hit KO'd by, say, Tauros, and then I get Para on the recover turn, that would be unfortunate, but That's like the main thing that I was concerned about at that point. Since
Yeah.
Dunsparce was asleep, I didn't have to worry about like Medicham getting parried or anything like that, or just anything like that. Because at this point, I'm not safe to close combat yet because the Tauros is still there.
Right.
So that's like my main thing is like, okay, I have to deal with the Tauros. Once I deal with the Tauros, this match becomes a lot easier for me. But yeah, no, like, just in this position in general, just being down 6-3, you still have everything at your disposal. The only thing I have going for me is that I still have hazards up. Now here's my thing. They go for the Roost here, and I was like, you know, close combat is definitely gonna KO the Dunsparce, but if he switches into Tauros, I'm in trouble. I decided, you know what, screw it, because even if he does go into Tauros, I'll just switch into Gastro and we'll see what we can do. But you ended up staying with Dunsparce, and that was a KO on Dunsparce, so now I didn't have to worry about any para shenanigans on Medicham, which, thank goodness, because he woke up that turn. So.
Yeah, I was debating whether I should go for the Roost or for the Glare again, and I think if I would have gone for the Glare, I would have just that would have put me in a much better position where I would have just chipped away at you until the unfortunate circumstances that you pushed through both paralysis and flinch.
Yeah. And the other reason that I was so scared of just the Tauros just being around in general is because I can't. I at this point I was thinking that it was possible that a close combat would take out the Umbreon. Just because Tauros just hits so hard, and since you're scarfed, you're probably max attack.
Yep.
Were you adamant scarf or jolly scarf?
Jolly Scarf. I anticipate, like I said, I was anticipating you going like the fastest Medicham in the land.
So, yeah, I was anticipating you being adamant scarf, which I'm not going to spoil anything, but if it had been adamant scarf, it probably would have won you the game. If I'm being honest.
Because I would have been able to two-hit KO the Gastrodon at that point. Like nothing would have stopped the Tauros from just absolutely rampaging.
Yeah, and then here comes the Braviary. I knew here you would probably go for the Defog because as of this point the hazards are still up. So I figured, you know, he's gonna get his Defog off. So let's just see if Ice Beam is enough to take it out. I wasn't sure. I haven't gotten any Storm Drain boost, so this is just raw Ice Beam coming off of a non-offensive Gastrodon, so I wasn't too sure.
Right.
But it did end up taking it out, so that worked out. Oh, I don't know if that crit mattered. Honestly didn't even see that it was a crit. It might have mattered. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, let's find out. I'll do the calculations.
Because you were like just above half here, so...
Gastrodon.
I was careful, and I don't think I had any special attack in this. I think I was max special defense, max HP, like 4 in defense, I think.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and just put Ice Beam on there. I'm just a specially defensive set because that's all that matters. And Braviary. Pretty close. No, I had a special defense nature, which is... no, it did not matter because Ice Beam deals 49 to 59%.
Okay.
It's just what was chosen for.
So here, like I said, at this point, I still knew that you weren't. I still wasn't sure if you were scarfed or not, or at least I don't think I knew. But I didn't want to like take any chances. Because if you were scarfed, you know, even with Sticky Web, you would still outspeed me. And like I said, Medicham was pretty much my last offensive mon, so like I wanted to go Gastro, but I was like, you know what, Umbreon's the better sack here, because if it dies, it wasn't gonna. I needed offense. So if Umbreon died, it died. But I ended up
this is where I
surviving.
was really surprised. Yeah, I was really surprised that it survived here. I was like, well, god damn it. And then I immediately thought afterwards, imagine it being Terra Ghost.
Yep, which is exactly what happened. So I figured I didn't think a Raging Bull would do it. Which, by the way, is also the reason I didn't bring Klefki into this match, because I knew that Raging Bull would just get rid of my screens, and it would threaten big damage on the Klefki anyway, so I was just like, it's not worth it.
Right.
But the fact that you were not adamant Scarf meant that TJ here was able to survive, and I was able to kind of, more or less, kind of put myself in a situation where I was able to make a little bit of a comeback here. Because now we're tied. We're 3-3. If I'm able to get Umbreon healthy, I don't lose at that point. Like even if even if I was in a situation where it was like, you know, even with Toro still alive, like as long as I'm Terra Ghost and Raging Bull just isn't doing the damage, then I have more safe switches to your fighting coverage, which means that even if the timer had continued, I was very likely to win regardless, at least in my opinion.
Right.
So,
Because close combat was just the heaviest hitting move that I had, and then like even if I had chipped away at the Umbreon, like eventually I would have just gone straight into struggles, and at that point there's just I lose just the endurance alone.
yeah. And then if you went for Raging Bull, Gasher just tanks those all day long, and it doesn't matter how many times I get Parahacks, there's a good chance I'm going to get a Recover and a Earth Power off.
Yeah.
And just be able to, take it from there. So I went for the Protect because 1, I knew you had Knockoff, and 2, I had a Wish coming, and 3, I figured that the Conkeldurr would die to Poison here, which is the one instance where the Poison actually worked out in my favor. But yeah, at this point, I kind of knew, like, alright, the Azu isn't going to be able to deal with this. Like, the Tauros isn't going to be able to deal with this. I have my defensive core still. Like, if this matchup continued, I figured I would still pretty much have it in the bag. I mean, Tauros is, like, in the red. 1 Earth Power would do it. I wouldn't even need to recover, pretty much, so...
Right.
But, yeah, that was an intense game, too. You had me on the, kind of against the ropes, going 6-3, like, almost right off the bat, so